Yo, 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 what up, Mr. Zoo Nation, aka Savage Armor Jr. Rapper, coming at you with my review on everything Megacolony was in the new set. Because guess what? It came out today, and I am very happy. Um, I didn't really want to do it like late because I know like by the time this video is going to be uploaded, it's probably going to be like 10, 11 where the day is almost over. So if you're seeing this like the next day, like on a Saturday or Sunday, depending on wherever you're residenting at, just know that this is release weekend, and I'm actually happy to do it. The reason why it took so long for me to do this video is for a couple of reasons. The first one is I've been doing a lot of collective thinking when it came to some of the things in the set. And also seen some results of how like the Mega Colony support works in standard format. I have yet to see anybody try to do like premium builds. Like I've seen like a few like premium builds already though, but I haven't seen anybody go like completely full depth on in premium builds. And then that's basically one of the reasons. The second reasons is I fucked up in more ways than one. So a few videos ago, I've done like a whole deck profile on gunning Khalil, and gunning Khalil, I said in that particular deck profile that Antlion and what is it, Phantom Black, they won't be used in it because I feel like that they were too slow. Not remembering gutting Cleo's second ability makes it to where that it makes the attack unblockable. Now it's still very RNG, like it's not going to happen 100% each time, but when it does happen, it happens. And then at the same time, I did say that there was some use of a lot of cards, and when I looked at one of the decks that actually topped one of the major events, I realized the direction they were going into. And the direction that that particular person was going into was making it to where you don't have to really counterblast slash soul blast as much, you know, in that particular build. And I was like, this build works perfectly fine. I did like a lot of proxy testing and stuff like that when it came to like everything in this build, and honestly, it works. It works 100%. So maybe I will do like a revision on the Gunning Khalil deck profile. I still have to do a premium version. Although, like, I'm gonna explain why I'm iffy about a premium Gunning Khalil deck. And then of course there's the machining standard and premium deck, which again in this video I will basically explain my issues with machining as a whole when we get to the grade 3s. So without wasting any more time, let's go through this. I'm going to go through each grade. I'm going to go through each card that was released. There are going to be a couple of cards though that I'm not going to be doing. I'm not going to be doing for prime example this, which is basically what every clan is getting, where if it goes to the Vanguard circle, you draw an extra card and you discard along with whatever cards you're drawing for the front forerunner. So that's understandable right there. And then of course, like all the vanilla cards, that doesn't really matter. I don't know how I'm going to manage to talk about a vanilla card. It's a vanilla card. I don't understand like how am I going to, you know, talk about it. And then of course the one card we should have gotten a long time ago but never gotten was Stealth Multipede. I don't think we'll ever get this Like I kind of feel like that we definitely should have got it in the set though, but seeing that we didn't. Anyway, let's get this started. So first up showing on my thing is Brawny Jerk. So let's read this effect. When placed, Soul Blast 1, and this unit power gets 6 plus K to the end of the turn. Put the top card of your opponent's deck into the drop zone, and if it's a grade 1 or greater, you Soul Charge 1. okay, it's a pretty decent effect. And when it boosts a unit that it attacks a grade 3 or greater Vanguard, um, discard a card from your hand. Your opponent chooses a card from his or her hand and discard it. So right off the bat, we do have a lot of interesting abilities right here. So looking at the first ability, it has an on-place ability where you soul blast it and everything else, and you get the possible soul back if it turns out that the card that went from the top of their deck into the drop zone is, you know, a grade 1 or greater. That's understandable. However, you also got to remember that this is an on-play skill, so once that skill is used, it's kind of useless. Like, I kind of wish that there was a little bit more to it. But seeing that you can get a soul back, and the soul thing, and the thing that you soul charge is a possible grade 3, which if there's anything we need to soul charge, it's definitely grade 3s. Like, I feel like the perfect soul charge will be a grade 3, no grade 0s, maybe a grade 1 or 2 here and there, maybe something that we definitely need into the soul. But outside of that, I feel like that would be like the best thing. Sadly, I kind of wish you can get the 6K without paying for the cost, but that's not really going to happen because, let's be real, that'll be too free. That's like a that would be like what that'll be like a 14K base instantly just by placing it. Luckily it doesn't have to be placed from hand, so that's a plus. So like, let's say you get it from, like, let's say what's his face? Let's say you get it from why can't I think of his name right? Stag Beetle. I don't know why I got that brain fart right now, but if you get it from Stag Beetle, you know, you don't have to. It doesn't have to be called from hand. You can call it from the soul with Stag Beetle, and you can just use his effect. Now, of course, it will be kind of pointless doing that if you don't have a way to restand it. Which the only way we can restand it is by, like, Hell Driver. Wait, how do you say his name? Hell Driver, why am I going to Great Forest? Oh, Hell Demise. That's what his name is. So, I don't know why I called him Hell Driver, although that sounds a little bit more badass than Hell Demise, but still. Anyway, the whole point is, unless you have him that's also getting placed or from the hand or from, you know, the soul or anything else like that, there's no way that you'll be wasting his effect like that, even if it means they get to put a card. I mean, even if you get like a possible soul charge back from it, even though it doesn't sound like a bad idea either. I mean, the 6K will go to waste though, but you do get to put the top card of your opponent's deck into the grave, which is always a good thing to make your opponent mill. The second thing is let's see, a secondary effect. Your opponent chooses a card from his or her hand and discard it, but you have to discard a card as well. And that's a good thing and a bad thing. The good thing is you get to filter out some of the cards that's in your hand, because let's be real, we're going to be using a lot of grade 3s in hand, and what will be the point of keeping a grade 3 in hand if you can't really guard with it? So that's pretty much something that's understandable with that. But at the same time, I don't think it's really worth it. Like, maybe late game where your opponent's like at 4 or 5 damage and they have like 3 cards in hand, I can understand you doing that. Also, it's understandable to do that if, let's say, you're going for the Antlion Phantom Black play. It makes a lot of sense right there. So it's not an overall bad card, it just feels like it's a lot situational. And I do see some people running it, but I don't see people running at a full 4, which is kind of a good thing. So at the end of the day, it's not a bad card, it's not a good card, it's kind of just average and whatnot. So I can understand, you know, people using the card the way they wanted to and all that. Me personally, I feel like it's a 3 of at best. I don't think that there will be a reason to run this at 4 because you do need your soul. And let's say your opponent like mills a grade 0, you're not getting the soul back. And despite that, that's one less trigger to worry about. I still don't think that's really worth it. Premium format, on the other hand, it may be a little bit more worthful because it's a lot easier getting soul into the in premium format than it is in standard format. So overall, it's not like I said, I think it depends on the format. Like usually I can see this as a 3 of, as a 2 of. In premium, I can kind of sort of see this at maybe a 4 of, depending on which deck you go for. But then again, Megacolony has a lot of good grade 1s, and it's kind of hard to justify the space for it. So I'm going to say it's overall meh. It's not the best, but it's for what it is, it's good. Let's put it at that. So let's see, skip that. Flowery Tiara. So this is an interesting effect. If your opponent card was put it from the deck into the drop zone during its turn, it gets plus 5k. No wait, yeah, 5k. So what makes this effect interesting is one of those things where if a certain action happens, it gets plus 5k. Even though it's like only a turn effect, it's still pretty worth it because that means the column is going to be hella big. And that's what you kind of want with a card like this. However, it's kind of hard to justify the space for it for a few reasons. One, despite that the mill effect is really good and you can make a deck that's around milling your opponent's deck as much as possible, I still believe that it's kind of hard to justify the space for this. Like maybe I can never see this at a full playset. I can see this like at a 2 of, because it's like you don't necessarily want to see it that often, but at the same time you want to try to milk it for what it can do. And sometimes making very beefy columns is something that you definitely need to do, especially in, like, let's say we're doing protect, you know, seeing that, like, let's be real, if you're not going against a protect clan, you're going against something like maybe Excel or Force, that extra push can actually help on so many levels, especially if you're playing against something like, let's say, I know this isn't a Force or an XL clan, but let's say you're playing against Darky Regulars, because Darky Regulars, they have very good defense. Because, you know, they can call stuff from the soul and use it as shield and stuff like that, and you know, they just overall have a very good defense presence. Something that they should have had since like day 1 when it came to standard. But at the same time, it's like if you're going against, like, let's say a Force clan that already got like a damage trigger, it helps in that sense as well. But at the same time, you have to calculate how many times you can put something from the drop zone, from your opponent's deck to the drop zone. Like, if I remember correctly, I think you could do it like a total of maybe 4 or 5 times a turn if you get the correct combo. Because let's see, Gun and Khalil is one when he's on place. You have Brawny Jack, that's another one. You have Cyclomatube that can do it possibly during the battle phase. And then you have like a couple of other cards here and there though, but let's be real, that there's not like enough cards to do it on a consistent basis, to do it more than once in order to justify Flowery Tiara skill. And let's be real, for another prime example, she may not be on the field when you ride Gun and Khalil, because, you know, stuff like Kagero exists and new Narukami exists, and, you know, maybe you didn't get it into your hand when you rode into Gun and Khalil. Like, there's a lot of factors that go into it, so it's like, it's hard to not only justify a place with this card, it's also hard to justify using the card as a whole. I'm not saying that it's not going to work. It can work, but it has to be I guess what I'm really trying to say is it messes with the consistency of the deck a little bit. Because, again, like I said before, with Brawny Jack is not a bad card. It's just that there's a lot of good grade ones to put into consideration. You got, for a prime example, you got Hornet, you got Phantom Black, you got a Butterfly Officer. I mean, you're going to have like a lot of those that are just definitely going to be used. And it's hard to be like, hey, let's do four, 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 and then this will be the other two. And I don't know. Like I said, maybe somebody will figure out a way to make it work. Maybe somebody won't figure out a way to make it work. But overall, I just feel like that it's not a bad card. It's just no room for it. Next, we're gonna have Giant Soldier Mutant Tower Horn. So when placed, you discard a card from your hand, draw a card, and if your opponent has no stand units, this unit gets +5 until the end of the turn. Now, when I did my Gunning Khalil deck profile, I definitely did put this card in there because I was explaining that since we're running a lot of grade 3s, sometimes you just need some cards to guard, so discarding one of your grade 3s in order to use this particular ability will be understandable. However, looking back into it, it may not be the best idea. Like, it's still good, especially if you're playing like a more budget build of Megacolony. He's definitely a good fit. I do see him being used somewhat in premium because, you know, here's the thing. The way I look at it between standard and premium format, in standard format, you can kind of sort of get away with having a lot of grade 3s in hand because despite that we have like a lot of heavy hitting decks, at the end of the day, there's no deck in standard that can technically put you at 6 damage very quickly. I would say if there's any deck that can come close to it, it'll be Gold Paladins. Gold Paladins could kind of come close to it because let's be real, that Ezel Rush is just a bitch to go against. Let's just be real on that. Maybe Neo Nectars as well though, but honestly, there isn't really that many decks where you have to do heavy guarding in the early game, so it's understandable that this card might come in handy somehow. I won't say like at a full play set, maybe kind of sort of like TR, maybe like at 2, maybe like at 3 at most. 3 is kind of pushing it, but a 2 of, I could definitely see it as a 2 of. I can definitely see it in some type of like form and fashion. I can kind of sort of see it in premium, because when it comes to premium format, however, there's a lot of early game, you know, rush decks. Matter of fact, I think in premium format, early game rush is more preferred than an actual mid game. And I feel like that Megacolony, it really excels and it really starts to go off in mid game, which is kind of sort of the reason why it's not a huge threat to the premium format. Like, it has very good utility cards. It has a new Ghidorah card, the new Ghidorah Stride and whatnot. It has Optirandus, it has Overwhelm and all this other stuff. It has the essential tools. You know, it got Zoa, it got the I forgot what the name of that one, you know, generic dragon that came out like in the premium collection and whatnot. They also have that, and it's like you have everything right there, but at the same time, it's like everything is mid to late game. You know, when it comes to, like, let's say Neo Nectars. Neo Nectars is probably, if not the best deck in the format, it is literally top 3 best decks in premium format. And the reason why that works is because the token rush is very strong in early game. Matter of fact, I feel like that the acceleration that Neo Nectars can provide it's very hard to be like, oh yeah, it's going to have like a weak point at some particular point. No, it has a very good early game because of early game token rush. It has a very good mid game because of Katrina, and it has a very good late game because Neonectars is one of those clans that if you don't beat it as soon as possible, they're going to get strong to the point where you can hardly defend against it. So when you put all that into consideration, it's like Megacolony is a good clan. It can pretty much stop 98% of the clans in the game. But at the same time, there are ways to play around it for one. For two, its hand advantage isn't like the best, but it's still there. And three, they have no early game. So it's considered a very slow deck when you compare it to something like Gold Paladins, we compare it to like any deck that can superior ride, it's just going to trample all over it. And by the time I get to grade 3, they're already going to be at their first ride. So yeah, you have to put all that into consideration when playing premium format. But like I said before, I think he has a place in premium format compared to standard format because you might be running the exact same amount of grade 3s, but he can cycle through them and it'll be more like, oh yeah, he can not only cycle through them, he can cycle through it so you can at least have some grade 1s or some grade 0s to guard and whatnot. So you'll have some guard potential in the early game just in case you like started off with like a majority of your hand being grade 3s. So with that being said, he's a very good card. I just don't think that he's like top-notch excellent. Next up we have Machining Lady Bomber. Now, honestly, this is specifically for any machining deck. When placed, Soul Blast 1 and rest his unit, choose any number among all rear guards and rest them. If your opponent has 3 or less rear guards, you countercharge 1, which is interesting. If your opponent has 3 or less rear guards, I think it says that's weird. That's a weird thing. Cause I don't know if it says 3 rear guards or less in general, or is it 3 or less rear guards standing in general, and you get to countercharge 1. It's weird. I don't know. It's a very weird card. I feel like it's interesting that it's a soul charge ability. Of course, you have to soul blast for it, and it's like, why use it when I have Butterfly Officer that can do the exact same thing but do it a lot better? I feel like the difference is that your countercharge will be like a lot faster because you have to wait at the end of the turn for Butterfly Officer, but this one you don't really have to wait to the end of the turn. This just uses it instantly, which is pretty funny in my honest opinion. But I feel like if you're playing this in premium, it makes a lot more sense because, again, at the end of the day, it's like machining premium is very strict on the unit having the machining name in it. So when you put it into that consideration, it makes a lot more sense that the countercharge ability comes up because, let's be real, when you play machining in premium, everything has to be the machining name. So in that particular sense, I can understand. Even in standard machining, I can still see this being used. I want to say like a 2-3 of, because again, unlike the premium version of machining, the standard version of machining, you're not really strict to the machining name being used on there. There's like only one card that does it, and we're going to see it later on. But at the same time, I don't know. It's kind of hard to really justify this particular card just because of the way it's worded. I have to look more into it, but definitely I'll have a final answer of what I believe this card has a place in when I do my machining deck profiles, which hopefully I can finally find a build by, like, let's say next week or the week after next. So with that being said, for now I'm going to say this is a 2 of in both premium format and standard format. So with that being said, I think that's the last grade 1. No, it isn't, because we have one more. Strong acid mutant Gerslug or Gersaslug. I don't know how you say it. Anyway, on the Guardian Circle, this unit shield gives 5k for each rested rear guard in your opponent's back row. I don't really know how to feel about this unit. Like, I don't see a slot for this particular unit. I do, however, don't think it's completely useless. And here's the reason why. Let's be real, Megacolony has always been known for getting extra stuff if your opponent's units are at rest. Like, let's be real, that's their thing. When you look at it in a perspective of defense, it's a perfect card to be playing in a deck. But at the same time, I don't think it's like the card to put in your deck, because like I said before, in like when I was doing, Brawny Jack, and when I was doing like Flowery Tiara, there's just way too many good grade 1s to justify the space for this particular card. Maybe in a budget build, this card would be perfect, because if you're playing budget in Megacolony, and I know for a fact that these 3 particular cards are not even expensive, so again, I don't really see a point in it. There might be some possibility for this particular card. Maybe we might actually see something that will make this card interesting in the near future, because let's be real, you look at, let's say for a prime example, Darky Regulars will be a good example, or anything else that hits very heavily like Shadow Paladins or Murakumo. We're starting to get like a lot of heavy hitting decks, so maybe defense wise this will be a decent card, because I have noticed that there are some clans that actually play their 15k grade 1s specifically for the shield value. So maybe shield value wise this will be actually pretty decent. But I don't know. I still don't really see a purpose of really using it at the end of the day. So I'm just going to say, like, meh. Let's just put it at meh. So that's it with the grade 1s. Let's go to grade 2s. We don't really have that much to go after. We have like 1. That's a vanilla. That doesn't count. 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. We got a pretty decent grade 2 lineup. So let's start with this Dressing Mutant Aggro Billbug. During the battle that it attacked the Vanguard, if your opponent's card was put in from a deck into the drop zone this turn, when your opponent would call Guardians from his or her hand, he or she must call 2 or more cards at the same time. Alright, we've seen a lot of cards like this come up recently. Not even recently, but I think every Protect clan is going to have a card like this, where you have to guard with 2 or more cards whenever somebody attacks. We've even seen some Protect clans that can do the exact same things. And we've even seen some XL clans that can also do the exact same thing. I'm guessing eventually every clan will have a card like this, where there will be a specific card that you have to guard 2 of, or you can only guard 1 of. In Magic, this will be technically Menace, but anyway, this isn't really that bad. It's not an on place ability, it's anytime. And she doesn't even have to be on the field at the time that you put the card from the your opponent's deck into the drop zone. So she can be used at any time. There's no timing involved or anything else like that. So overall, I mean, this is a pretty decent card. However, I don't know if it's a good 4 of. I don't know if it's a good 3 of. I do actually. This is a pretty decent 3 of. Good 3 of. I don't think it's a 4 of, but I think it's a pretty decent like 3 of or 2 of that you can put in the deck, because it is an 8K grade 2 for 1 for 2. It is something that only happens if you're able to use put something from your opponent's deck into the drop zone. So that is another thing. At the same time, you know, I actually like the artwork. I'm not gonna lie, the artwork looks amazing. At the same time, kind of sort of like the grade 1 lineup, we have a lot of decent grade 2s. You know, of course we have Mantis because, you know, he filters out the deck and stuff like that. I'm starting to see people put like a lot more usage of Water Gang, so that's another thing. Like, Water Gang doesn't have to be like a complete 4 of either though, but I'm starting to notice that people are starting to see Water Gang more and more. And then Bloody Hercules is kind of an iffy one. Like, I know some people see value in Bloody Hercules, some people don't. I kind of made the mistake of seeing some value in Bloody Hercules, so that's my apology for that. But so, like I said, I'm going to do like an updated Gun and Cleo deck profile. But overall, Aggro Billbug is a very decent card, so I see it as a 2 or 3 of. It's just a very simple, your opponent has to draw more than one card in hand. It has a built-in critical. That means they either have to PG it and put yet another card onto the Guardian Circle, or, you know, the other way around where they have to guard with a shit ton of cards in hand. But anyway, one of the interesting things about this is that it doesn't even have to be like at a high. It doesn't even have to have like a lot of attack in order to make it useful. Like, you can make this hit for like maybe like 16, or you can make it hit for like 27 or anything else like that, and it will work perfectly fine, because at the end of the day, your opponent still has to guard with 2 cards in hand. And if they don't have anything to intercept with, it kind of makes it pointless. So you're hitting for 16, but you're getting rid of 2 cards in your opponent's hand. So that's technically a good trade-off at the end of the day. Next up, we're going to have, where is he? Heat Gun Mutant Brat Laser. So he just have a simple ability. When it stands, this unit gets +3 in return. No. For a couple of reasons. That's not worth it. There's not enough cards in standard to restand a unit. There's not enough cards in well, actually there is enough cards to use it in premium. But you also got to remember, a majority of the cards from the older sets that restands units has to have machining in his name. And seeing that he doesn't have machining in his name, it's almost going to be near impossible to have some type of advantage with this card. I wish there was some more cards that made you force rest other cards and stuff like that. And there is a card in here that makes stuff force rest, so that's understandable. However, there isn't like a whole combo that you can do with it. Like, if there was a way where you can make it restand, re-rested, restand, re-rested, restand, re-rested. Like, make it to like where it's kind of like a semi-loop thing. Like, it doesn't have to be a loop or anything, but it could be like a semi-loop. It will work. But seeing that there's no way to do it without complicating things, and when, you know, there's no way to make it like plus off of it so many times, it's right now, I'm gonna say this, it's right now pointless. If we ever get cards or we get a strategy to where we can restand and rest units and restand and rest units, this card will be perfect. So I'm not going to say count it out completely, but for now, count it out. There's no reason to really use this card. There's no real reason for any build to have a card like this. It sounds good on paper, but strategy wise, there's nothing for it. So, 0. Moving on. Hiding Killer Leaf. When it attacks a Vanguard, Counterblast 1 and Soul Blast 1. This unit gets power 10k into the end of that battle. Put the top card of your opponent's deck into the drop zone, and if it's a grade 1 or greater, draw a card. I mentioned before that we have a lot of effects that does Counterblast 1, Soul Blast 1. And sometimes that does become an issue because of resources. But seeing that there's no way to restand them during battle in standard format, that really shouldn't be too much of a problem. In premium format, it's kind of hard to justify the space to it, although it is welcome. At the same time, the fact that you're soul blasting and counter blasting one, regardless, is a huge cost, especially when you have other stuff to worry about and you have other stuff to look after. But I will say out of all the grade 2s that came out in this particular set, this is the best one. So it is a possibility to run Hiding Killer Leaf at 4. However, I have seen builds where it was run at 1, where it was ran at 3, where it was ran at even 2 sometimes. Like, I've seen it being used in all quantities. Like, I've seen it used at 1, I've seen it used at 2, I've seen it used at 3, and then 4, of course. I feel like the only way that you can justify playing this at 4 is if your deck is more based around the milling aspect of it. Not milling to get effects, but more of milling just to mill your opponent out, or play the mill, to play the deck out game with your opponent, basically. If that's the case, he's a perfect at a 4 of. Otherwise, I see him at 3 to 2. Another good thing that I do like about this card, however, I would say that this is probably one of the more perfect grade 2s to ride into, your Vanguard circle. So that is another thing. Outside of that, because he could use his effect during, your turn. So, like, let's say it's on the Vanguard circle, it attacks, he uses effect. Turns out the card is grade 1 or greater. You get to draw the card, and then you get to do your drive check. So it's understandable that this does have some pretty usage in the Vanguard circle, which is probably something I like the most about it. So just in case I can't, get into him in my Vanguard circle, I do have Hiding Killer Leaf, which is like the next best thing. So, 2 to 4. That's basically all I gotta say, 2 to 4. There's nothing else to really say about it. It kind of sucks if your opponent has to do a grade 0, although that's one less trigger out of the deck, but it's still pretty worth it regardless. So again, 2 to 4. Let's move on. Red Light Mutant Flat Ray. It's weird. Like, a lot of grade 2s that we got from this set has very short effects. Rear guard circle for 1 turn only. You can counterblast 1, choose 2 of your opponent's rear guards, arrest them, and this unit gets their power to the end of the turn. Now, it is a 7k, which is very iffy, but if it can gain the power of 2 of your opponent's rear guards, in a way, that's kind of worth it. I can't necessarily see this as like a 4 of, most definitely, because let's be real, this is the one card you don't want to ride as your grade 2. It's a 7k. You're going to get rushed the hell out after your turn. So in a way, there's really no point in really playing this at a 4 of. I can see this at most 2. one, most definitely, but two, if you want to try to be very gimmicky. Because overall, this is a very gimmicky unit, and it kind of messes with the consistency a little bit, considering the other grade 2s that we have in the grade 2 lineup. So overall, I'm going to just say one of. Just in case you want to be the very gimmicky player in an already very gimmicky deck. Matter of fact, just go full on gimmicky. But moving on. Super Attack Mutant Megalar Lancer. Okay, I finally said his name a little bit right. Megalar Lancer. A lot of things to say. So, when it attacks a Vanguard, this unit gets power 2k to the end of that battle for each of your opponent's rested rear guards. Then, put a rear guard into your soul, and your opponent cannot intercept to the end of the turn. Honestly, when it comes to putting like grade 3s into the soul, this is kind of sort of one of the more perfect cards. Like, if you had a grade 3 in a back row, if you had Antlion on the other rear guard circle front row, then he would definitely work on so many levels. However, I don't know. He doesn't see a lot of value, in my honest opinion. Because one of the things I thought about was using this in premium format. But we have a card that does something not only similar, but it does it a lot better. And that is, let's go to the premium version first. Where are you? It is a machining unit. Alright, Armor Beetle. So let's look at this for a prime example. Choose another Megacolony rear guard and put it into your soul. When this unit is placed on the Vanguard or rear guard circle, if you have a Megacolony Vanguard, you may pay the cost. If you do, choose one of your opponent's rear guards. It cannot stand during your opponent's next stand phase. Now, although it doesn't get any power, you gotta remember that it puts everything into the soul at an instant. The moment it comes out onto the field, it puts something into the like the rear guard from the rear guard circle into your soul. So if you have Antlion on the field and you don't have a grade 3 into the soul, you just simply play this card, put the grade 3 into the soul, and you basically get this dude's effect. Which is understandable. And I feel like when it comes to premium format, this card is a lot better than Megalar Lancer when you put into a value aspect. So with that being said, Megalar Lancer feels more like a standard format card, but that's not all. You also gotta remember that in order for this effect to work completely, you have to figure out what you're you're putting into the soul. Because let's be real, like I said with the Antlion skill, you definitely want a grade 3 into the soul, and you also got to remember that if Antlion is going to be your other attack, where are you going to put the grade 3 at? You have to put it somewhere in the back row, like let's say the back of your Vanguard or something like that, because there's no way to be like, oh yeah, let me put this into the soul, and then it's like, okay, where's my Antlion? Because we don't have extra circles like XL or anything else like that, so the way you use this card is very limited. But you also got to remember something else. Let's look at Gun and Kaleo when we get to it, where it has the ability to Soul Blast a grade 3. You also got to remember that you cannot use that during your opponent's battle phase. I mean, not your opponent's battle phase. You can't use it during your battle phase. So at the end of the day, it's another way. And again, we already have other cards that can put grade 3s into the soul a lot better and a lot more efficient, going back to Butterfly Officer. So With that being said, I can still see Megalar Lancer being played, but not at a 4 of. And I don't necessarily see it give that much of an effort like I originally thought it was. However, the 2K boost is actually pretty interesting, and it does work if you're going against, like, let's say a full field XL deck. Um, let's say you're going against like Gold Paladins or something like that, or Murakumo, where they have a full field with like nothing but rested units. It works, especially seeing that they can't intercept as well. It works. However, then you look at Pale Moon, Silverthorn specifically, and they can put all their rear guards back into the soul, so it makes them pointless. Bottom line is he's too situational. So you can't really run him out of 4 of and a 3 of. You have to run him out of 2 of if you plan to run this in a deck, especially a standard deck. So with that being said, Megalar Lancer overall 2 of. Last but not least, we got our grade 3s. We only got like, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. We got 5 to work with. So let's knock these 5 out because this video has been going on longer than I thought it was. So let's start out with Machining Centipede. Counterblast 1, choose the same number of your opponent's units as the number of your rear guards. Until the end of your opponent's next turn, those units lose Twin Drive, Intercept, and Boost, and they cannot get them stand as unit. So this is a very interesting machining unit on so many levels. For a prime example, in a full-blown machining build, this works perfectly. And it's funny because you force your opponent to lose Twin Drive, which means when they attack, they can't do any drive checks at all unless they somehow get another drive back, which is funny. However, there's too many situational things happening at once. For one, this type of effect cannot work in premium because they're just going to stride over it, and all of that effort will be pointless. Now, if you're not going against something like, let's say, Luard, where they can easily stride for free, or any other deck that can easily stride for free, you do gotta remember that sometimes they can miss the stride, so they have to attack with the Vanguard or anything. They have to attack with what they have without striding. In that particular case, it works, but that is a very, 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 very rare occasion. And you literally have to put your opponent at no cards in hand if they so happen to survive your turn. So that's the issue that I have with it. And it'll be funny, they draw the card, they can't really stride, they can't really drive check at all, so it's funny. I feel like this has deleter vibes, which is funny in my honest opinion. But I think another funny thing is preventing your opponent from boosting. Again, very situational because your opponent has probably just replaced it and call it a day. And yeah, Megacolony has always been that clan where it's like everything that they do will go to waste once everything is replaced. But it's the principle of forcing your opponent to replace stuff that makes the card good. It makes the clan good as a whole. In that particular case, it makes sense, but I feel like there's way too many what ifs and there's way too many things going on in the mind to even justify using this particular card. In a full-blown machining deck, it works because machining has a lot of stuff to work with, especially seeing that you have Stag Beetle that calls everything at rest. It can restand itself. And you have Spark Hercules that has the ability to restand all of your units. So it's not going to a complete waste in my honest opinion. And because of this, I have to say at most he's a 2 of. I can't really see him as a 4 of. I can't really see him as a 3 of, but a 2 of, I can definitely see him doing that. Next up, we have Machining Ornamental, which is honestly an effect I had to read more than once in order to completely understand it. So when placed, rest all of your other rear guards and perform one of the effects before, one of the effects below, not before. Cost, counterblast 1, grade 3 with machining in its card name and perform both instead of one. Choose all the rest of the rear guards and they get power plus 5k to the end of the turn. And your opponent can only stand up 2 of his or her units during your opponent's next standby phase. So, this is going to old school machining tactics, and not only just old school machining tactics, old school Megacolony tactics, which I feel like Bushiroad should kind of do. It should keep machining more of old school Megacolony tactics, while everything else is more of new school Megacolony tactics, which will be very interesting. But I'll talk more about that whenever they get support again. But anyway, both effects are weird. So you choose all of the rested rear guards, and they get power plus 5k, which is cool. But it also gives your opponent all the power too, which will be pretty useless because there's no way they can use that particular power. So, but if you can figure out a way to restand all of your other rear guards, I mean, if you have a way to figure out to restand all of your rear guards, it works perfectly, especially if ornamental. Well, actually, it's kind of sad because it says rest all other rear guards. So sadly, ornamental won't get as much goodness from Spark Hercules, but it will still get a lot of goodness regardless. But anyway, I do like his other effects where your opponent can only call 2 or his or her units during your opponent's next stand phase. I mean, they can not call; they can only restand 2 of the units. So that's something that I definitely like, in my honest opinion. But again, as like a full machining deck, I can definitely see this as a 2 of. But talking about what I was talking about earlier when it came to his first effects, I kind of feel like I messed up on that. You get Spark Hercules, and instead of standing them up and they get plus 5k, they're all going to be 10k besides ornamental, of course. Unless you use Stag Beetle's effect and call her from the soul. Like you call her on top of Stag Beetle and everything will be at rest. They'll get plus 5k. She'll still only get a 5k boost from she'll still only get a 5k boost. Well, actually, no. Let me look at that again. Because it says all of the rested rear guards. So if you call her with Stag Beetle's effects, you use her effects, she will also get the 5k, and then you restand with Spark Hercules, and every rear guard would get a plus 10k. And this is off of, like, let's say 2 counterblasts. Because the only way you pay for a cost is if you want to use both effects. But seeing that you don't want to really use both effects, and 90% of the time, you're basically getting her for free. Matter of fact, Stab Beetle's effect is free because call it from hand, call a card, you call 2 cards from the soul, rested, use her ability, rest everything else, or unless if everything was already rest, but it will still count, everything would get plus 5k. You restand everything with Stag Beetle's effect, all your rear guards are restand, and they get a plus 10k. It works perfectly fine when you put it into that perspective. So with that being said, maybe she's a 2 to 3 of when you put it in that case. However, if you're running a full machining build, you also want to put Spark Hercules, you want to put Stag Beetle. They're always going to be 3-4 ofs. So I guess the real issue is there any space for ornamental? And if there's any space for ornamental, is there any space for centipede? Um, Hopefully, like I said before, I will find out a way to make all of this work, and um, hopefully have video footage of that as well. I'm not gonna lie. Hopefully, one of these days. Um, Coming up next is Prismatic Mutant Stagger 7. So when it attacks a Vanguard, if all other units are at rest, counterblast 1, and until the end of the battle, this unit gets power 20k. Then Soul Blast 2 grade 3s. If your opponent chooses a card from his or her hand and discard it, and if he or she can only call cards with the discarded grade from hand. So, it has a lot of setup, and it is an alternate win condition compared to Antlion, or Antlion. Where Antlion, you just have to Soul Blast a grade 3 and discard 2 cards in hand. You have to also have Phantom Blast to complete to complete the combo. But this has to be the very last thing attacking, sadly. Sadly, this has to be the last attack because everything has to be at rest. And it does have a pretty decent ability because it gains plus 20, which means it's going to be at a 32 base if you didn't get any triggers. If you got triggers, then it'll be like 40k if you got 1, 50k if you got 2, 60k if you got 3. Then you have to Soul Blast 2 grade 3s, which again, depending on which format you're in, is not very hard to get grade 3s into the soul. It has the ability to have a guard restrict as well. This works on a few levels, but it's not like the best effect. I feel like if you were to really make this card as good as possible, you have to do a very, very, very complicated combo. In order to do this, in my honest opinion, you have to have the following cards on field. Your Vanguard has to be Gun and Cleo. It has to be on place that particular turn. You have to have Stagger 7 in one rearguard circle, Antlion in another rearguard circle. The back row of both units have to be Phantom Black. The unit that's boosting the Vanguard can be whatever you want it to be. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if there's nothing in that particular rearguard or anything else. Maybe another Phantom Black, but that's kind of pushing it. In the Soul, you have to have 4 grade 3s. So, use Gun and Cleo's effect. Gun and Cleo is on place. It gets plus 5. It gets a drive. Your opponent puts the top card of their deck into the drop zone. If it's a grade 2 or less, cool. If it's a grade 3 or higher, then you get another drive and another 10k, which we're gonna talk about in a little bit. And then you use Gun and Cleo's second ability, which is, let's see, Soul Blast, 1 grade 3. Put the top card of your opponent's deck into the drop zone. Your opponent can then call cards in his with the same grade of that card from his or her hand into the turn. So you give the guard restrict, which is understandable. So that's the first grade 3 that you're Soul Blasted. Then you do your drive checks with Gun and Cleo. It doesn't matter if it hits or not. Then you attack with your opponent's unit with Antlion. You Soul Blast another grade 3. You discard 2 cards. And your opponent can't use Sentinels. You discard a 3rd card for Phantom Black. And now your opponent can't guard with normal units. They can only guard with trigger units. Now keep in mind that if they milled a grade 0 from Gunning Khalil's second ability, they cannot guard at all. That's now a built-in critical that's going to instantly hit because they have no way of guarding. Then you use Stagger Beetle's effect. Counterblast 1, and it gets another 20k. Then you Soul Blast 2 grade 3s, and now you Soul Blast 2 grade 3s, and now your opponent has to choose a card from their hand and discard it, and it has the ability of your opponent can't guard with that card either. If I remember correctly, 90% of the time, your opponent is going to discard the card, the grade that they couldn't guard with anyway. So it doesn't necessarily take that much away from them. But you use Phantom Black's ability, again, you discard another card, then it gets plus 6k, and now your opponent has to guard with trigger units only, which means AKA PG or die. So, with doing that full combo, you have to have a total of 4 grade 3s in the soul in order to use his ability, and you have to discard a total of 4 cards in your hand in order to use this full combo. The problem is doing this in a timely manner, and sometimes that's not even worth it. So, with that being said, Stagger 7 isn't necessarily a quote-unquote bad card. It is a very interesting alternate win condition, just in case you either can't get Antlion in turn, all your Antlions ended up in the damage zone, which happened to me multiple times, or you couldn't get Antlion in time, which kind of sort of is a little bit impossible. It's not really impossible, but it's like it shouldn't really happen that often because you have a lot of ways to get, you have a lot of ways to filter grade 3s in and whatnot, which is understandable. With that being said, I see Stagger 7 at a 1 to 2 at most. Because although it's a decent win condition, it's a decent win con, it's not good enough to really justify it, especially seeing that our grade 3 lineup is already going to be very, very, very heavy with certain support. I definitely see this as a one-off, I'm not going to lie. So it's like, if you get the effect, you get the effect, cool. If you don't, you don't, it's okay. You're not really losing too much of your consistency or anything else like that. So it's understandable. But like, it's one of these things where Stagger 7 works on paper, but it doesn't work in execution. So that's why I said this is a one-off at best. Moving on, Cyclomatooth. I said his name wrong that whole other video. I kept calling it Cyclomatooth, but it's called Cyclomatooth. When it attacks a Vanguard, calls Counterblast Soul Blast 1, and this unit gets plus 10k until the end of the turn. Then put the top card of your opponent's deck into the drop zone, and if it's a grade 1 or greater, this unit gets plus 1 critical to the end of the turn. And then of course I told the other effect earlier, where I didn't tell this effect earlier, I told the other effect earlier. So it has a second ability. When rolled upon, your opponent chooses a card from his or her hand, discards it, and one of your Vanguards gets power plus 5k to the end of the turn for each of that card's grades. So a lot of people said that this card is very slow, which they're not completely wrong. You definitely want the on-ride ability, which is understandable. Sometimes your opponent's just going to say, "Oh, screw it, let me just get rid of a grade 0." But then again, that's like one less 15k shield in their hand. Unless if it's a draw trigger, then it's one less card in their hand in general. Um, what makes this interesting is it's a card that you can use on both the Vanguard and Rearguard circle. So I see this better as a Rearguard than I see it as a Vanguard. Because despite that the on-right ability is cool, it kind of fizzles out and it kind of makes it slightly pointless if your opponent just ditches a grade 0. Again, it's one of those things where it's one less card in her hand, but at the same time, I kind of feel that that's where the too slow part comes in. Not to mention that it does require Counterblast and a Soul Blast in order to use his first ability, which again, I did say earlier I had an issue with Counterblast 1, Soul Blast 1 things, and overall, I don't know. But if you do get like a grade 1 or greater, it gets a +1 critical. So that is something to definitely look forward to. And it gets a power 10k and a critical. So again, that's something to definitely look forward to because it has critical pressure, it has possible critical pressure, it has plus 10k pressure, and of course, like, you can't really, your opponent can still guard with Sentinels. That's not a problem. But I guess the real issue that a lot of people says is too slow is look at all the other grade 3s that we have to use in like a typical Gun and Cleo deck. You have him, or you have Gun and Cleo himself, you have Hell Demise, you have Stag Beetle, and you have Antlion, and you're already playing a 12, you're already playing an 11 to 13 grade 3s in this deck, and it's like some of these cards you have to run as a 4 of, so you're not really going to get, you know, a lot of value off of all the grade 3s that you already have to play as. So when you put it into that consideration, yes, the card is kind of slow, and there is a lot of stuff that makes the card, you know, very unplayable to some people. However, and I will explain this a little bit more when we get to Gun and Cleo, I feel like this is a perfect card for premium. Because, again, you can use this on a rearguard circle, which means that you can call it out with Gridora's skill. And yeah, I know you're supposed to be calling out Antlion for like the finishing blow, but let's say you're not at a point where you don't know if you can finish your opponent off. Use Gridora's skill to call him out, and then you use his ability to, and he already has like a 10k when he comes out. You know, whatever comes out from the deck using Gridora's skill is going to have plus 10k. So that's understandable. Then you also have the ability of using this effect where it gets another 10k. Now, of course, the critical aspect of it is very RNG. You're not always going to hit a grade 1 or greater. You're sometimes going to hit a grade 0, and you won't get a built-in critical. But let's say if you do get a critical, you now have a crap ton of pressure on your opponent, because let's say your other rear guard is Antlion, and you have this card at the same time, you're not only possibly going to crit your opponent if you attack with your Vanguard, but you have a guaranteed crit right here with Antlion, and then you have a possible crit with Cyclomatooth, which technically means you're in a way playing Force 2 tactics against your opponent. Which is funny in my honest opinion. Not to mention that Phantom Black is still a thing. So you can basically make it to where they have to call cards um, that are trigger units only. Sometimes maybe this is the type of unit that you want to see um, people get rid of their hand for more, so that when Phantom Black comes, I'm not Phantom Black. So when Antlion and Phantom Black is about to attack, then they have hardly anything to guard with. So when you put it into that particular perspective, it's it works a lot better in premium than it works in standard. Like you can technically get the same result in standard, but I feel like it runs a lot more smoother in premium than it does in standard. So, with that being said, I see this ran at a 3 to 4 up. And last but not least, Gunning Khalil. So when placed, this unit gets power 5k plus a drive to the end of the turn. Then put the top card of your opponent's deck into the drop zone. And if it's a grade 3 or greater, this unit gets power 10k plus 1 drive to the end of the turn. Second ability, Soul Blast 1 grade 3, put the top card of your opponent's deck into the drop zone, and your opponent cannot call the same grade card from his or her hand to the end of the turn. This card is very good. This card's amazing. I don't know what else to really say about it. It's definitely a 4 of. There's one problem. This is a perfect standard card, a not so perfect premium card. Because yes, it does get a plus drive, and if your opponent's at grade 2 and this is your grade 3 ride, it works wonders. However, after that, it's useless because it's like, oh yeah, the whole point of putting your opponent's cards from the drop zone, that particular part isn't really useless. But just the fact that you're going to be rewriting into the stride, knowing that Gunning Khalil is base 5k plus a drive, that becomes a huge issue. And that's kind of sort of why I said Cyclomatooth is a better premium card, but a not so good standard card. It's a complete opposite with Gunning Khalil. He's a very good standard card, but a very bad premium card. And it's like, I had this idea of having this little thing that's very cheesy, but it can kind of sort of work. However, there's too many factors to put in. One, you have to have specific cards in your hand in order to do this ability. Two, your opponent cannot be playing something that's superior rides. And three, it's too complicated, too situational, and there's no way you can get it off in a timely manner. The way you do it is you basically rush in with Gunning Khalil if your opponent's at grade 2, because, like, let's be real, they are grade 2. They don't have any access to G guards yet or anything else in that particular matter. Then you have the ability of using like Antlion skill and Worker Ant skill and all this. Not Worker Ant. What was his name again? I don't know why I keep forgetting that dude's name. I don't know why. Armor Beetle, my bad. I don't know why I said Worker Ant. Armor Beetle. Let me go back to standard. So you have that to put into consideration. Then you have to put like enough grade 3s to the soul. You have to have enough grade 3s to ride into and to put into the rear guard circle and stuff like that. And it's like, overall, on paper, it sounds like a very great combo, but on execution and timing, again, those are two major factors. Like I said about with like staggering 7, it just doesn't work, and I hate that. But if it did somehow happen to work, I think I would have had a higher chance taking the game or whatever, because let's be real, everything starts to become like super super, I don't know why I said super complicated and stuff like that for your opponent to guard against everything. And then they have to take built-in crits and whatever criticals that you got from the Vanguard and whatnot. So overall, it's a very good card, very good standard card, very terrible premium card. And I'm not saying don't run it in premium. Like, I would say if you're to run it in premium, probably run it like at a 2 of at best, like maybe 1 of or 2 of or whatever. But at the same time, I feel like Cyclomatooth will be a perfect modern grade 3 to run in a modern deck, or run in a deck around it. So with that being said, that is finally the end of my video. I know it took so long for me to go through all of the cards, and I didn't say everything in a timely manner and stuff like that, so I apologize. But this was a full breakdown on what I consider very good when it comes to Megacolony and stuff like that. So with that being said, I'm heading out. My name is Z Nation, aka Savage Armor General Giraffe, signing out.